Hey, ladies and gentlemen. In this screen recording, you're going to see and hopefully understand and read some of what are known as the five themes of geography. And remember, geography is we're simply talking about the study of the planet Earth. And this is going to help us understand what questions to ask as we study um, different parts of the Earth and how the Earth is put together and how humans interact on the Earth. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is location. Location basically tells us where something is. And you've got two types of location understanding where things are. You've got relative location and absolute location. The first one we're going to talk about is relative location. And this is describing a location by what it is near. So you could say, use Holland for an example and say Holland is near Lake Michigan. Another example would be saying Cuba lies 90 miles off Key West, Florida. Okay, so that would determine relative location. The next thing we're going to talk about is absolute location, and this is using GPS coordinates or global positioning system coordinates to describe a location. So that's when we start talking about latitude and longitude, and this is all about an exact location. So an example would be of Maclay High School, and it tells you the coordinates and it tells you exactly where it is on a map, and you can do that with any spot on planet Earth using latitude and longitude. And we'll talk a little bit more about latitude and longitude as we continue our study of geography. The next theme that we're going to talk about is place. Place defines the physical and human characteristics of a location. So that means we're just talking about the type of land that is there and the type of people that live in a certain location. So you can describe place using this different terminology. So let's take a look at what we mean. So the first one we'll talk about is human characteristics. So the example that we're going to talk about is Latin America. And this is a region of 20 countries of Central and South America that share things like common heritage, which would be their history, and things like their culture. Okay, so we're talking about human characteristics of place. So when you look at Latin America, you see that most of the people in Latin America generally speak Spanish. They share a common history, which would mean that Spanish conquistadors came over, colonized these areas, and they all shared that common experience. And then you could talk about culture, that would be the types of food that they eat. You could talk about the religion that they share, and that would characterize human characteristics of a place. Then we'll talk about physical characteristics. In physical characteristics, we're talking about the climate, which is the kind of weather that they have, landforms, so the type of land that they live on, and the terrain. And the terrain would be the topography. Do they have mountains? Is there a lot of water? Is it a desert? And these are examples of physical characteristics of a place. So when we talk about a place like Sydney, Australia, Sydney is the most populated city in Australia. It's temperate climate, which means that it's pretty comfortable there. Its beaches and cultural events make it a prime tourist destination. So there's reasons in the physical geography that people want to visit there. Their beaches, their nice weather, and some of the cultural events that they do, some of the rituals that they do, and some of the kind of fun that they have. So there's a picture of Sydney. Then we'll talk about the third theme of geography, which is region. Regions are areas with similar characteristics. So similar to like place, regions can be based on human and physical characteristics. Okay, so this would be a larger area of places that share commonalities or things in common. So an example would be the Atlas Mountains. The Atlas Mountain Range stretches across three North African countries, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. Okay, so because these mountains go through three different countries, we would call this a region. Okay, so you would describe the Atlas Mountains as a region because they stretch through 3 different countries. The next one that we'll talk about is the fourth theme, known as human and environment interaction. And this describes how people adapt and interact with their environment. So it means how do we use the environment, and then how does the environment affect us? Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got. So there's something called slash and burn agriculture, and this is an example of how the humans interact with the environment. So this is known as cutting and burning of large areas of forest as a way to clear land for farming. So what they're doing is they're taking away all of the trees so that they can plant crops then to feed larger populations and make money on the crops that they're selling. Okay, so that would be an example of how humans use the environment. Now what we have is our last one, and this is movement. Okay, this is our last theme of geography, and this describes how and why people and things move around the world. Okay, so basically movement. You take planes, trains, automobiles, bicycles, all of that stuff would fall under the category of movement. So the Suez Canal would be an example of this. This is a man-made canal, basically a man-made river, which opened in 1869. And what this does is it links the Mediterranean and the Red Seas, and that allows for movement of people and goods from one part of the world to another. Okay? And with all of this said, we've got the 5 themes of geography kind of summarized here for us with location, regions, place, human interaction with the environment, and of course then movement. Okay, go back to any of these themes that you're not sure about. Make sure you're asking questions of something that you're not quite sure about. Asking those questions will allow us to have a deeper understanding of the 5 themes of geography. But this is simply an overview, and I hope it helps us with our study of the Earth, which is known as geography.